Oh, perfect. There we go. Hey all, Pedantic Skeptic here. Today we're going to go through part 2 of Why Christianity, Collision Don't Apologize, Session 4 with Steve Christ by We Are One Youth. It is a YouTube channel, that's a Christian apologetics ministry that's got about 2,000 subscribers. Um, so hopefully we will get to the meat of the, video, if you will. Um, it's like we're 17 minutes in. It's like you're digging through a carcass and you haven't gotten to the viscera yet. So let's get to those viscera.
It tries to provide a sort of cohesive offering that when you're struggling with an answer to your question, you can go back to your worldview and go, okay, but because I believe this, that means that this has to be true.
So sorry, twizzling in my mouth. I've actually gotten a lot better about not living on candy. When I was younger, that was like all I would eat was candy. Um, if you believe something to be true, it should be true. But there's a difference between believing something is true and that something actually being true.
The problem is most people get on the train and they never check the ticket. It's like, I truly believe it takes so much more faith to believe that, like, everything, like you and I came from nothing.
So, what he's doing here is he's setting up as though there's absolutely no evidence that the universe, for example, had a beginning. Now, I don't know if he's talking about philosophical nothing or naturalistic nothing, but whatever. Roll with it. The thing is, it doesn't take faith to accept something that has evidence for it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be faith.
Feels way more unlikely than you and I being created by someone or something, at least. Let's just say.
Although, creationism isn't unique to Christianity. There are creation myths in most religions.
Something. Because all through human history, every time there was something, it came from someone or something.
This guy kind of looks like Adam Conover and Kurt Cobain had a baby together.
Give me one of these. Where my people at? Oh, dude, I could slay in like a hip-hop R&B genre. If you give me a mic and some auto-tune, set me loose. Give me one of these. Where my people at? We be talking about worldview. What you gonna do? I lost the. I got thrown off in the verse. Sorry. I apologize to you watching online right now. Put auto-tune on the actual. I changed keys somewhere in there. So, a true worldview has to be logically consistent.
I agree.
If we're gonna judge this and go, okay, this is valid, then it has to, at every point in the train's journey, continue to build on itself in a logically consistent way. It has to keep making sense. If we get to the end of that logical conclusion and go, well, that's not true, then its initial hypothesis, you guys remember that word? It's only been 2 months since you got out of school. Its initial hypothesis, the theory that started the journey.
You can't conflate hypothesis and theory. Okay. So, colloquially, hypothesis means theory, sure. If we're just talking casually. But, this is what we call a bait and switch, where you use the word one way at the beginning of a premise, and then later on in your argument, you mean the word in a different way, but you use the same word. Now, a theory is, in science, a set of laws or rules that are backed by evidence, oftentimes gained experimentally. Like gravity is a theory, evolution is a theory, the germ theory of disease is a theory, things like that. A hypothesis is an as of yet proven or ascertained idea that's expected based on what we already know. So, for example, if we know that, I don't know, caterpillar A feeds on plant 1 and plant 2 is a close relative of plant 1, and we know that as well, a hypothesis could be that caterpillar A will feed on plants 1 and 2, and then you can do an experiment feeding the caterpillar plant 2 to see if it will feed on plant 2.
If the initial hypothesis is true, then the final conclusion will also be true. If we get to the final conclusion and it's...
So a hypothesis is just a statement. A hypothesis can't really be true or false. So if I'm doing an experiment, let's pretend that I'm experimenting on the effect of temperature on tadpole development rate. My experiment could be, will tadpoles develop differently at different rates under different temperatures? And so one hypothesis would be tadpoles development rate is not affected by temperature. And then another hypothesis would be tadpoles development rate is affected by temperature, and I can break that down further into A, the tadpoles grow more slowly at higher temperatures, or B, the tadpoles grow more quickly at higher temperatures. Now, I have multiple hypotheses there, and my hypothesis may or may not be true, and it's all going to depend on what the data shows.
It's not true. The hypothesis... Let's pray. Jesus, amen. All right. Sometimes the deepest prayer is a single sigh. Guys, somebody put that on a t-shirt. No. Sometimes the deepest prayer is a single sigh. Oh, we got the rhyme scheme. We got the rhyme scheme. Where are my people at? Where are my people at? All right. See what we're ultimately talking about? As we talk about logical consistency, we're talking about conditional statements. We're talking about if-then statements. If this, then that. If this is true, then that will also be true.
Yes. However, a lot of these can be on faulty premises. So, I don't remember if I did a video addressing the Kalam cosmological argument, but the biggest issues with the Kalam are that we don't know that the universe had a beginning, but B, if the universe had a cause, it doesn't necessarily mean the cause was a god.
If I eat an entire pint of ice cream in one single sitting, then my blood sugar will go through the roof.
In general, yes. Provided you're actually assimilating the sugar that's in that ice cream. There are people who have weird metabolic disorders where they can't actually pull the sugar out of food and put it into their blood.
Fun story. Where's Norman at? Homie was just having like a sad boy day. Like he was feeling his feelings. You know what I mean? Like he was. And so he ate for lunch an entire pint of Ben and Jerry's ice cream.
Wow, I hope it was a good flavor for that many calories, but...
Now, the World Health Organization's suggested recommended sugar limit for the day is 40 grams.
Yes. Alright. Hang on, I gotta close this window because my neighbors are making a lot of noise. Who the fuck is texting me? It's midnight, you motherfuckers. It's after midnight, Jesus Christ. Oh, my friend's getting laid eggs! Hang on.
Just out of curiosity, I looked at the pint. What was that pint? 96? 96 grams of sugar. He consumed in a single minute. I said,
I would be impressed to see somebody can...
buddy, there's something wrong with you. I think you should see a doctor. Because that's like depressed, broken-hearted ex-girlfriend on a Friday night behavior. That's like, hey, he just dumped me. Let's watch The Notebook and eat an entire pint of ice cream. That's not the middle of a work day.
So, I can relate to this. I've never been a big eater, but I've had I've had times where I would have like one meal a day or one meal every other day, and it would be just nothing but like one of those, like, I don't know if it's a pint or a half pint. It can fit in the palm of your hand. It's about this tall. Things ice cream. And that would be like all I would eat for like 1 or 2 days. Super bad for you, by the way, but I can relate to that.
This is not normal behavior. You see, if I eat an entire pint of Ben & Jerry's strawberry cheesecake ice cream in one sitting, then my blood sugar will go crazy.
I mean, typically you want to quantify that a little bit better. So my blood sugar will double. My blood sugar will, rise from a baseline of blah 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 to, hang on a minute. Just a second. Okay. So, normal blood sugar is going to be Jesus Christ. 90 to 100 milligrams per deciliter. 90 to 130. So you could say, if I eat that entire pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Now, I'm not a metabolic specialist, so I don't know how quickly the sugar would enter your bloodstream versus how quickly it would be taken out. My guess would be that it would go from like 100 to, 300, 400, something like that. And remain that way for at least, 20 minutes.
And I will eventually crash. I want you to become comfortable with this sort of thinking. Okay, what we're really talking about today, I'm going to give you scripture, but that's not what we're really going to go through. I'm trying to give you the bigger, broad overview of what the Bible says and the way, at least as to the point that I understand it, the way God thinks. I'm not going to pretend to understand ultimately how he thinks, but
you're basically pretending to understand
at least the way he's revealed traditional Orthodox Christianity through the scriptures and through the church's experience, this is the way he seems to think. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot in philosophical terms.
Wait, is this guy like Eastern Orthodox?
If that word makes you nervous, it just means philosophy. If that word makes you nervous, philosophy is just the study of knowledge.
Just a minute. Okay, good, we're still rolling. Sorry, my Bandicam froze up a couple times and I had to restart it earlier this evening, so I'm just double checking to make sure it's still running.
The Latin literally means love of wisdom. Philosophy is the attempt to sort of understand, what's the meaning of life? Why are we here? What's the point? How do we respond ethically and morally, and like how should we treat one another in light of how we define the meaning? That's what we're gonna get to, okay? We're gonna talk very philosophically, big picture, abstract. I'm much more comfortable. That's the way my mind works rather than listing off a bunch of facts for you. If that stresses you out, then just tighten up a little bit and
That's what your mom said. I was kidding.
watch it online. It's gonna be okay. I promise. If you need to sing yourself a little auto-tune song, like quietly under your breath, that will be okay. Okay? But ultimately, what I want you to become comfortable with is thinking in terms of conditional statements. So if someone comes to you and they say, hey, I believe this, my response is always to try and first think, okay, well then if you believe this, then you also believe this, right? Like, this is the logical conclusion.
I believe that the Giardia is no longer living in my digestive tract. I believe this because my immune system works normally, I think. And I believe my immune system works normally because I don't have evidence of the contrary.
Of that. If this, then that. And if they're on board with that, then you just keep following it. Well, then if you believe that and that, then you also believe this, yeah? I promise you, if you'll just be patient with the people that you're having these conversations with, or even yourself if you're doing it in the mirror, like if you'll be patient and recognize that you're not, once heard someone say, you're not answering a question, you're answering a questioner. Like you need to put it out of your mind that you're trying to answer a question. A question will never satisfy a questioner. You're trying to actually give a questioner a new worldview. And if they're coming from a diametrically, which means completely opposed worldview, then they're not going to join your team and accept your boundaries when you first answer their first question. This is a journey you are walking them through as a questioner. So I always like to poke at the thought process that they're using. What is the logical consistency in your argument? If you believe that, then that means you also believe this. These are conditional statements. The number two thing that you're going to find as sort of our way we're going to judge a worldview. No, actually, I'm going to back up super quick because I think this is a good thought. The worldview cannot contradict itself. You'll notice this is why, this is what they poke at with the Bible. If they could prove that the Bible contradicts itself, then they could prove it is not logically consistent.
Not only that, but the Bible's claim that it is the absolute word of an infallible God is really, really going to be challenged by the fact that there are things in the Bible that just don't add up. And I'm not going to sit here listing, the hundreds of biblical inconsistencies and, this and that, because that's not the point here and it's not really relevant. But there are plenty of times where the Bible contradicts itself when we don't expect it to, if it's authored the way it's claimed to be authored.
So what they're trying to tear apart is its logical consistency by trying to poke at whether or not it contradicts itself.
How do you define something contradicting itself? I'm just curious.
But when you look at conditional statements, it is true to say, if I eat a pint of ice cream, then my blood sugar will go up.
I would hope.
But it's not necessarily true to say, if I do not eat a pint of ice cream, then my blood sugar will not go up. Okay, I
Yes, because you could be eating something like cheesecake or a fucking pomegranate and your blood sugar will go up. Now, the way that blood sugar basically works is you take in the food and you digest it, and the sugars enter your bloodstream. And for that period of time before the insulin gets to the blood sugar, pulls that blood sugar out of your blood and stores it in the liver, because that's what happens, okay? Your blood sugar will be up. Now, what will happen shortly after that blood sugar is increased is it will decrease once again to its baseline levels. Now, your blood sugar is never going to be zero because your cells need sugar in them, so the blood has to transport sugar constantly. But when there's extra sugar, there's more sugar than what is needed, it will be stored until future use. And that's why we don't have to eat constantly. That's why we can go several hours, days, even weeks between meals. Okay, that's how this sort of thing works. Like hummingbirds, for example, can only go, 20 minutes between meals, because of how small they are and how active they are. They actually become comatose when they sleep. That's a different story, but your blood sugar basically goes up a little bit when you digest sugary foods, and most foods you're going to have some sugar in them, okay? Unless you're like drinking water or black coffee or something like that, you're not going to have sugar in your body, but most food you eat has some kind of sugar in it. Even if it's like a steak, and I'm a vegan, I don't eat meat, but if you eat meat and you eat like a steak, well, that muscle tissue had some sugar in it. Not a lot. I'm not saying that like a steak is going to be a significant source of sugar, but there's still a little bit in there that is going to enter your bloodstream.
I understand. Let's just slow down. If I eat a pint of ice cream, my blood sugar will go up. If you agree with that, give me one of these.
I agree with that under most circumstances. If we are assuming you don't have one of those weird metabolic disorders where your body can't really absorb the sugar or something like that, if we assume that, you're of a normal metabolic profile, then yes.
If I do not eat a pint of ice cream, then my blood sugar will not go up.
Again, that is going to depend on a couple of factors. First, what are we defining as your blood sugar going up? Are we talking about, okay, I've been fasting for the day, and so my blood sugar goes down a little bit until my liver catches on and puts more sugar in my blood? It's kind of like having a savings account, and your bloodstream is like your checking account, and you have a whole shit ton of money stored in your savings account, and let's say, you don't get paid on time, so you have to pull something out of your savings account to pay rent. Well, let's say, you're walking and you fall in a well, and so you don't get to have dinner, and your blood sugar goes down a little bit, but your body is going to detect, hey, my blood sugar went down a little bit, so now my liver is going to send some glucose back into my blood so that my cells can get sugar normally. So if you don't eat anything, your blood sugar is going to go down and then back up to a normal baseline. If you eat something that's not ice cream, your blood sugar is going to go up. If you inject yourself with a bunch of glucose for whatever reason, be careful injecting yourself with things, but let's just say you inject yourself with glucose, your blood sugar is going to go up.
Is that a true statement?
No.
Like, not necessarily, because there's other things that can make your blood sugar go up outside of the pint of ice cream.
Yes. Very good.
So if I eat a pint of ice cream, my blood sugar will go up. But if I don't eat a pint of ice cream, it's not necessarily true that my blood sugar will not go up. And then if you completely flip it all, what happens is, this is what people do. They go, well, if my blood sugar goes up, then I ate a pint of ice cream.
What if my blood sugar goes up? No. I have never met somebody who would make that. I mean, I guess I probably have. I've met some really dumbass people.
Is that true? No, because there's a million things that can make your blood sugar go up. I want you guys to stay with me. Ready? Lean in. Go from the back of your chair to just like, don't go all the way. Don't. It's stressful to me when you go from here to here. It's overwhelming. Just go like from here to like just here. Yeah. If my blood sugar goes up, that does not necessarily mean that I ate a pint of ice cream. But because what I'm familiar with is, if I eat a pint of ice cream, then my blood sugar goes up. That, to some people, is used as logical consistency. It's what we talked about yesterday with gender. Well, your height is changing all day.
Yes.
Therefore, there's a spectrum to genders. Like, this is one of the smartest men on planet Earth right now. It makes no sense. Why? Because he's trying to use the inverse of something to try and prove the initial thought.
I mean, there's independent verification that gender is a spectrum, but that's beside the point.
Initial thought cannot always be proved. Just, yes, a pint of ice cream will raise my blood sugar, but just because my blood sugar went up does not mean that I ate a pint of ice cream. This is the equivalent. If we take the devil's chair analogy yesterday, if this chair moves, then I will believe in God. If this chair moves, then I'll believe in God. I'll believe God exists if this chair moves. This is their if-then statement. This is what a lot of them are doing. Well, if this chair moves, then I'll believe that God exists. Well, if this chair does not move, then I will not believe God exists.
I mean, technically, the chair is moving at about 600 miles an hour because the Earth is rotating.
Now, does the movement of a chair have anything to do with God's existence?
Probably not. However, if your definition of God has something to do with chairs, then it's possible. This is why you need to very clearly define God.
No, that's weird. It's like not even close to logical. But this is a very, very often used argument.
I have never heard this argument being used.
Are humans capable of moving the chair? Is it even like supernatural to move the chair? It might be impressive, but I've seen way cooler magic tricks. Am I right? Ever seen like David Blaine like stick a needle through his hand or cough up a frog? Don't Google that.
Just kidding.
That would be so bad for you to Google or YouTube. It is not cool at all. It actually might be inappropriate, I don't remember, but it's wicked cool when he does it. He's learned how to house frogs in his belly for hours so he can cough them up on command. Yeah, find me later, I'll show you. Not literally, I was like, show you the video. It's not even impressive for the chair to move. But what they do is they go, okay, well, if this chair moves, then I'll believe that God exists. Okay, well, this chair did not move, therefore God does not exist. As if that had, like, they're getting on a train that has no logical ticket to get the...
I mean, at least they are trying to set up some form of experiment to verify God's existence, unlike you.
What they never try is if I believe in God, then this chair will move. They go,
I'm not following.
oh, well, if this chair doesn't move, then I will not believe in God. And if this chair does move, then I will believe in God. But they never try as, well, if I believe in God, this chair will move. Which is foundationally the point of Scripture, is that the supernatural, miraculous things that God does, he does for those who believe. He does for those who have faith, because it is a sign to the unbeliever through the believing.
What?
That it was the apostles who went and said, silver and gold have I not, but what I have I give to you. Get up and walk. Right? The miraculous supernatural gets bestowed on an unbeliever through the power of God present in a believer. So, I understand that this is not like, oh, I get it now, P. Steve. Great, thanks. Give me some more auto-tune and I'll be on my way. I understand that this is like heady. This is kind of complicated. But if you can just try to sort of think through the things even in your own life and even just quiz one another. Okay, well, if you believe that, then do you also believe this? Because what you're looking for in any worldview is logical consistency. Number two, it's explanatory power. It must be able to answer your questions.
We're halfway through this video, and I'm still not getting why Christianity over other worldviews. A
worldview, like, it satisfies something in us.
Just because something's satisfying doesn't necessarily mean it's correct or good. You can satisfy your thirst with antifreeze, but that's a very bad idea.
It gives us that answer to the questions that we can sort of lean back on, like I was saying, in times of doubt or trouble. And what a lot of people, like, for me, my question comes back to, like, it's an if-then statement for me. The logical consistency is like, okay, well, if the explanatory power of the world satisfies something in me, if a worldview's, like, if having an answer, if having a story satisfies something in me.
See, the difference between me and this guy is that it's not enough to have an answer. I have to have a correct answer, okay? And so if there is a question that we don't yet know the answer to, I would rather settle for, well, this isn't known, instead of some conjecture as to what it may or may not be without sufficient evidence.
Where does that desire for story in all of us come from? And a lot of people go, well, it's because we were raised on Disney movies.
I've only watched a few Disney movies personally.
That we just want everything to be a fairy tale. We want everything to have a specific type of ending. But then the question becomes, why do Disney movies exist? They didn't make them and then we got addicted to them.
Disney movies exist because a company managed to capitalize on our need for a very particular product. In this case, a movie. So, most people want some kind of entertainment that has very specific themes in it, very specific characterizations of the characters and things like that. And so if you give the people what you want, you can make bank. It's just economics.
Worked immediately because they satisfied something in us when we watched them the first time. It means something to you ladies when you see the princess alone in the tower, looking, feeling overlooked like you felt. And then he comes along and rescues her from that. And he takes her to the palace where she now has covering and communion. She's protected. That does something in your inner psyche. Why? Because you grew up on Disney movies? No. The Disney movie worked because you were wired and built a certain way that would satisfy an answer to a question that you had.
And that doesn't prove anything supernatural. That just proves the ability of human beings who are just trying to make a living and trying to participate in the grand scheme of things, to recognize patterns, recognize our own nature, and capitalize on that. That's all it proves.
Your worldview foundationally had something built into it that when someone answered that question, it triggered something in you that just felt primal. And what we hear a lot right now, what people are arguing is, well, sort of the way we've built culture, it's sort of built all those things into us. It's like, no, because before movies we had books. Because we crave stories and we crave a happy ending and
The media at which something is delivered doesn't change the yearning for the particular product, okay? So, just like movies used to be on those giant weird plastic square tapes, and then they moved to CDs and things like that, and now they're on streaming services. The media at which something is delivered doesn't have anything to do with the need for that thing.
we crave knowing that it won't always be the way it currently is right now. Why? Where did that come from? Because before we had books, we scribbled things on the wall and we sat around a campfire and we told each other stories about great conquests of bravery and courage and humility and chivalry and gentleness. Something about that was just built into the DNA and the fabric of how humans operate.
And one of the things that you'll know, get you should take note of, is that other species that live in social contexts have relatively similar means of relaying information. We happen to have larger brains, so we don't just relay basic survival information, we entertain each other. Um, that doesn't prove anything supernatural. And additionally, I don't see this as being something overly special, anything to get worked up about.
It was there first. All of the ways we've learned to create through time has just done something to help unravel it. So the second way that we judge a worldview is it has to have explanatory power. It has to be able to take my questions and actually explain them. It has to be able to answer my questions. Number 3 is, everybody, if you have glasses on, let them down just a little bit, because we're going to do this next one together. And we're going to say empirical adequacy or consistency altogether.
So, where does Christianity have empirical accuracy?
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Empirical adequacy or consistency. Where my nerds at? Empirical very simply just means like depending upon experience or data.
Close enough.
This is what PD was getting at last night. He was trying to give you the experiential first-hand eyewitness accounts as well as the accepted scholarly data for the life of a man named Jesus of Nazareth, whom some called the Christ. A worldview has to be rooted in data. It can't just be...
You know, if this guy trips and falls, that microphone is going to go right through his teeth.
Be like, well, this is my thoughts, and I really think that this girl on TikTok has a lot to say. I'm sure she does. Thank God they at least cut her off now at 3 minutes? I'm sure she has a lot to say, but does she have empirical data and actual eyewitness experience to the things that she's speaking to? So the 3 ways that we're going to judge, because I'm going to start flying now. We're going to go so fast. The 3 ways to judge.
Sorry.
Number 1 is what? Internal consistency. Number 2 is what? Explanatory power. Number 3 is what? No. Empirical adequacy or consistency. Nobody said it. You got to say it with the voice or it doesn't work. Okay, so here's the 4 parts of a successful worldview. You ready? Origin. Number 1 is origin. Where did we come from? How did it start?
Well, one day, mommy and daddy... No, I'm just kidding.
Every single worldview on planet Earth has to answer this question.
Well, it doesn't have to. It just happens to.
Where did we come from? How did this all begin? You will see in the Bible, it's kind of the way that they chose to start. It was kind of feels logically consistent to me, actually. I kind of like that they started the whole thing off with Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This establishes a lot. It establishes a beginning, because we talked about yesterday how science actually argued for hundreds of years that the universe was eternal.
So, remember, I made a video a while back. Eternal has to do with time. Eternal is not the same thing as infinite, right? If time began at the same point as the universe began, then the universe is technically eternal. So the universe can be eternal while still having a beginning. The universe can't be infinite while still having a beginning, but it can be eternal, because turn, T-E-R-N, that refers to a time frame. Okay?
So the fact that the Judeo-Christian worldview, which is what the Bible speaks to, established from the very beginning that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning means there was a beginning. Did you like that?
Remember, you can have something that's eternal with the beginning, because eternal has to do with the context of time.
In the beginning means that it started. It means at some point there was not a beginning, and then suddenly there was a beginning, allowing us an origin story. It even established the subject. In the beginning, God. This book is going to be about how God, from the very beginning and pre-existing the beginning, because he created the beginning itself. Let's not get too caught in the weeds, but he created the very beginning of time itself. God, who pre-existed time and the beginning, created the beginning and all of the heavens, which is everything not on the earth, and all of the earth. So, from the start, God made the universe. That's how Genesis begins. Consistent worldview has to have an origin. Number two. Guys, look how fast we're moving right now. This is fun. Are you guys having as much fun as I'm having? Come on, be honest. Don't actually, if you're not, just shut up. Number two is meaning. Number one is origin. Number two is meaning.
It almost feels like he's coming up with criteria for a successful or proper worldview that just Christianity can be retrofitted onto. It doesn't seem like he's consulted with other people or even gotten some kind of consensus on what makes a worldview a good worldview.
It has to describe a meaning to life. These four thoughts come from a very, very famous Christian apologist, and I've always appreciated the way he sort of phrased these four things.
I was appreciating your mom last night. No, I'm just kidding.
Number one is origin. Number two is meaning. Why? What's the purpose of life? Okay, if we can answer where we came from, because science can answer sort of where we came from, they have an answer to that. But then the second part, because we know this is in us, right? Well, what's the meaning? And what science tries to do, you'll notice, is they go, well, we came from nothing, it was a big bang, and then we began the process of evolution. And so what they essentially mean by that is they mean you were a complete accident.
It depends on how you define accident.
And spoiler alert, number four is destiny, which means that
But what's number three?
they want to answer the question of where do we go after the fact. Let me give you a little sneak peek, because ultimately they believe, okay, we came from nothing and we're going nowhere. Nothing happens after you die. Your destiny is dirt.
Your body decomposes and you become a very nice snack for maggots and beetles.
Oh, that's a good band name. Wow, your destiny is dirt. You came from nothing and you're going to nothing. So what is the meaning of life? Say it with me. Nothing. Life can't mean anything if we came by total accident.
You say that like it's a bad thing. Now, first of all, as discomforting of a thought that might be, it has nothing to do with the actual truth value of that particular idea. Okay? You can't just say, well, this is an unpleasant thing to think about, therefore it can't be true. Like if you get diagnosed with cancer, for example, yeah, it's not pleasant to think that you have fucking cancer, but you can still fucking have cancer, even if it's not pleasant to think about the fact that you have cancer.
If it's a coincidence that we're even here, if where we're going is the same accidental coincidence that ultimately amounts to nothing, then what we're doing here can't ultimately have any purpose.
So, that is not inherently bad. Okay? What we choose to do with that information is a different story, but, just because we weren't put here by someone above us, just because we're not, doing anything that serves something greater than us, doesn't mean that there's no point to doing anything, okay? We make things to have specific purposes, and, viewing ourselves as objects is probably not what we're going for. In a sense we are objects, whatever. But the issue here is that this guy thinks that if we are not on this planet for some higher calling, it suddenly means that we're worthless. And I don't think that's the case.
Does this make sense? The prevailing worldview ultimately pokes at the fact that they're trying to create meaning for a life that they cannot ultimately create meaning to because we're not created.
Just because, the thing is, if we were specially created by some god that actively wants us here, I feel like that almost makes life less valuable, because if God really wants us here, why does it matter if we take precautions in our daily life to avoid accidents and this and that? Why does it matter if we put on a seatbelt? Why does it matter if, we cook our food properly, things like that. Because if an all-powerful God really wanted us here on Earth, we'd be practically invincible and indestructible.
Like, we believe that the origin is that God created the heavens and the earth. Ergo, the meaning of life is intimacy with that God.
I'm not even going to make it your mama joke, but I really want to.
I actually want to give you this verse because this is maybe not exactly what many would think to be the best biblical definition of what is the meaning of life. But this is how I see it. John chapter 1. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children not born of natural descent or of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God.
See, I don't understand. Children born not of natural descent, like, did this guy, like, not take sex ed? Or, like, how does this guy think babies are made?
Like, yeah, absolutely. The meaning of life is to be with God eternally in heaven. Sure. Absolutely. The meaning of life is to tell others about Jesus and to evangelize and to go into all the world and make disciples. Absolutely. But ultimately, if I gain the whole world and lose my own soul, what's going to be said of me? The meaning of life is that to all who, what? What's the scripture say? Put it back up. Yet to all who did the works, who were acted perfect, to all who receive him, to those who, louder please, to those who believed. Because the basis of the Christian life is belief. To all who received him, who believed on his name, he gave the right. And then it goes on, he says, no matter how they were born, no matter what they came from, no.
You know, I don't know if this is just the nature of these, like, evangelical training seminars, but, like, this is not a seminar to give to somebody if they don't already believe in this shit.
Well, no matter what their current earthly background is, he gave the right to become children of God. You know what the meaning of life is for you? For me? It's to be a child, it's to be a son, it's to be a daughter of God. It is to be in intimacy with the Creator who lit.
You know, word choice can be very important sometimes.
Literally, when he just decided it was time, said, let there be light. And suddenly, everything that you've ever known happened in an instant. That the God of the universe chose to actually become intimate with you.
I hope he got permission first.
That's the meaning of life. And meaning is supposed to then produce the third thing, which is morality. So one is origin. And again, these are the four, sort of, let's call them tent poles of a worldview.
Oh, Jesus, fuck.
Origin, meaning, morality, destiny. We'll talk about morality right now. Morality is, okay, if I understand where I came from, and I understand the purpose of what we're doing here, what are the rules? How do we do this? What's the best way to go about this? How do we function as a society?
You know, the way this guy's got this, like, microphone real close to his mouth, especially when he's talking about homosexuality earlier, just makes me wonder, like, what sorts of things is he repressing within himself?
And what happens is they all flow together when done properly, right? Because if you get on the train of thought that is logically consistent, then the origin produces the meaning produces the morale. Oh, I'm backwards for you guys, sorry. That was like, I did it in Arabic.
Well, you still have to demonstrate how Christianity is true, and you haven't done that yet. And at the rate you're going, I don't think you're going to get there in this hour-long video.
It's a funny joke because they write right to left. Okay. So the origin produces the meaning produces the morality. Ultimately, the final product of all three is that if I do them in the order that the Creator intended, I end up in the proper destiny. So the origin, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. God did it. That creates my meaning. So my meaning is to do whatever God asks. If God created this, and that means he is the creator and he has a purpose in what he's doing, that means I want the meaning of my life to be centered around whatever he finds to be meaningful.
Now, my question is, well, two questions. First of all, why does an all-powerful God need mere mortal humans to do his bidding? But secondly, and more importantly, do you think, if my purpose as a being is to be whatever some other being wants me to be, don't you think it's critical to first demonstrate that A, this being exists, B, this being's will is whatever, and C, this being requires me to actually act according to its will? Until you have demonstrated beyond a shadow of a doubt, because the stakes here are very high, This isn't a matter of, what color your pet frog is. This is a matter of what my life is going to become. If you want me to alter the course of my life, you do have to first demonstrate beyond a reasonable doubt that the reason to do that is true.
Because I don't have meaning outside of him. I was created. I came from him. Which means whatever he thinks to be meaningful, I want my life to see as meaningful. Well, what are the things he sees meaningful? Well, we describe them in terms of morality. He sees it meaningful when you don't kill each other. He sees it meaningful when you have no other gods before him. He sees it meaningful when you commit to, a man and a woman commit in one marriage and do not defile that marriage. They marry one another and they're married for life and they do not have sex with anyone else outside of that marriage. He sees it as meaningful when we don't lie. He sees it as meaningful when we rest and we honor the day that he set apart as worship, as holy unto him, right? The simplest version of this is the Ten Commandments. But the rules are the way that we respect the meaning.
It's really distracting how close that microphone is to his mouth. I'm sorry. I gotta how long have we been at this? Yeah, we're at about 51 minutes. Alright. I think that's gonna be it for tonight. I really need to get better at just pre-watching some of this shit, because this is a lot of fluff, a lot of word salad, and the title's very clickbaity. I want something of substance to respond to, and this is just a bunch of garbage. Okay? First we got the guy going like this with a fucking microphone, and he's coming up with some idea of what makes a worldview a good worldview, or what you need in a worldview, which, first you gotta really pin down the definition of worldview, and, you have to then probably get a good consensus, about what makes a worldview a good worldview. But in any case, I am really disappointed in what this guy's presentation has been so far. This is 2 hours of my life I'm not getting back. But I'll see everyone in the next one. Don't forget to be pedantic.